And now I want to say a word about the hero's journey. As you commit to learning from the Quantum Health Transformation Program, you will find that you are stepping out into the hero's journey. I will briefly outline the steps found in the classic Hero's Journey and will include some of the images that I have found on the internet, and I'll add them to the replay of this show. So now, for those of you who are not familiar with the hero's journey is a cycle that we go through, every single one of us, throughout our life. We go through it over and over and over again. It's also the basic format for a lot of our entertainment. A really classic example is Star Wars. Star Wars is all about the hero's journey. And the different shows that we watch with superheroes and feel-good stories, they always involve the hero's journey. So although this is kind of an archetype, we actually all play this out over and over again within our lives, but many people have never really considered the format. So I am going to give you a little overview of 4 different versions of the hero's journey. They're essentially all the same, but different people, of course, will view them differently. So I'm going to run through 4 different versions for you now. So imagine in front of your mind's eye a clock face. And at the 12 o'clock position, there's you experiencing your ordinary life. Now, when we move on to the 1 o'clock position, we get what they call the call. So it's an urge. It's an urge to see things differently. It's an urge to experience things differently. It might be an urge to improve a certain quality or interaction within your life. It might even be the call to reach out for more spiritual growth or even personal evolution. And at about the 2 o'clock position, we find that we have helpers. Now, helpers could be videos we find on YouTube. Helpers might mean a friend. It might be someone that we just randomly happen to meet, and they just know the right thing or the right information to help us on our journey. When we get to the 3 o'clock position, we're now stepping outside of our ordinary life, and we're now stepping into the unknown. And after the 3 o'clock position, between the 4 and the 5 o'clock position, we find we run into problems and perils. We face all kinds of challenges that we didn't expect to find. Some of them are fairly minor and they might pass quickly, but others can be really significant, depending on how much you need to shake down your former self, your former health, your former way of believing or seeing things. And it can be a very uncomfortable part of the hero's journey. But once we get down to the 6 o'clock position, it actually gets really bad, because by now our eyes are opened. And it's sometimes called the pit. It can be a time where we experience depression, anxiety, that we find out the world doesn't operate the way we thought it did. And it can be very disheartening. But if we persevere and we push past that, if we realize that's a very temporary phase, we start to come up to the 7 and 8 o'clock position, where we start to discover our inner guru, our inner strengths, that we can help create a different kind of world. And by the time we reach the 9 o'clock position, we are passing from the unknown back into the known. And we receive gifts, and on the return, we have a new level or an evolved state of life. So we're back at the 12 o'clock position, and we've come full circle, but we've been changed forever. And once our consciousness and our awareness has expanded, it never goes back. And we repeat this cycle over and over and over again. And that is the nature of human reality. So now I'm going to move into another illustration which shows you at the 12 o'clock position again. And around the 1 o'clock position, we again get called to some kind of adventure. It could even be creating your brand new social media channel. It could be starting a business. It could be starting a relationship. Really, it could be anything. And also about the 2 o'clock position, we always meet a mentor. Mentors just come into our life. We can't even really describe the process, but they're there and they encourage us. They encourage us to keep going. Now, at about the 3 o'clock position, again, we're crossing the threshold from the normal world that we're familiar with into the unknown. And again, at about the 4 and 5 o'clock positions, we not only discover the trials and sometimes failures, but we also recognize new helpers. And the new helpers help us to keep going in our hero's journey. And eventually we end up at the bottom in the 6 o'clock position. And on a different chart, it's called Death and Rebirth. So it's really where we start to die to our former self and be reborn into a new creation, which we have complete control over. Then at about the 7 o'clock position, we receive revelation. We start to go, oh, now I understand what to do. And we start to make more changes. Now, on this particular chart at the 9 o'clock position, we reach a state of atonement because generally we realize by this point what we've done wrong in our lives, and sometimes we need to make adjustments, and sometimes we need to make some restitution. But again, by the time we've passed through that 9 o'clock position, we get these amazing gifts, knowledge, insight, wisdom, ways of being, ways of doing, so that when we return back into what we call the normal world, we're truly changed, and we're changed forever. We never go back, and we have a much better life and a much better way of seeing everything. So I've got the third chart here, which is the hero in his natural environment. That would be the 12 o'clock position where you start. And you start off in your ordinary world. You have the call to action. Sometimes we have a refusal of the call, and then we often meet a mentor and we embark back on our journey. We cross the threshold. We have trials and, of course, our first failure. We end up meeting allies and enemies. But we start to grow and develop some new skills, and sometimes we have our very first success before the 6 o'clock position, which on this chart is called the Grand Trial, and it results in revelation and insights, huge consciousness awakening point. After that, as we move into the 7 o'clock position, it involves a discarding of the old self. The 8 o'clock position is the accepting of our new role in life. The 9 o'clock position is the road back. And then stepping up to the final challenge, and we win with much success. Then we step back into the ordinary world where we see a restoring of order, and we take a new place in the old world. Now, the last illustration I'm going to quickly run through here is, imagine that clock is now a spiral, okay? And you could be anywhere on the spiral, but the starting position is at the smaller end of the spiral. And you have a call to adventure. Sometimes a refusal of the call. You go, no, I don't want to do that. I won't fit in. People will make fun of me. I'll look stupid. I might fail. But then there's the meeting of the mentor, the crossing of the threshold. And in the 4 and 5 o'clock positions, there are tests, new allies, and some new enemies. There are a lot of people who do not like to see you change. They love the old status quo, and when they see you stepping out of it, they don't like it very much, and sometimes they cause trouble. Now, the 5 o'clock position on this chart's called Approach to the Inmost Cave. And the 6 o'clock position is the Ordeal in the Abyss, Facing the Shadow Self. Very, very disturbing, very, very necessary work for us to evolve. After that, we reach the Apotheosis, then the Ultimate Boon, and by the 9 o'clock, we actually don't want to return to the ordinary world, because where we're at, no matter what fringe location you have ended up on, it just becomes so much better and so much more workable than the ordinary world. But eventually, we step over back into the ordinary world on the road back home. And then at about the 10 o'clock position, we're the master of two worlds. So we know the world we left. We now have become very good at the world we've created, or the special world. And now our spiral takes us a full step above our original starting point, with a return with special knowledge and ascent to a higher plane. And so this is very, very, very exciting, because it is a roadmap on what to expect. It's not going to be all rosy and wonderful. There are going to be some very intense challenges, betrayals from friends, all kinds of things. But boy, it sure is an interesting way to live your life. And your world will get better and better and better the more times that we do this. So I really encourage you to step out on the hero's journey. And like I said in the replay, I will post those diagrams, and you can look up on any search engine, look up in the images, the hero's journey, and there's just tons and tons of information. So fill your boots. Just a reminder, the Quantum Health Transformation online course is free. And if you would like to help support my work, please purchase some of my beautiful Zen Domes Organites. Due to the pandemic, we are having difficulty sourcing supplies, and so we're unable to make more at this time. But there is still plenty to choose from. If you would like to enjoy more of my content, check out my website at www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com, where you will find an abundance of free resources to assist with energetic ascension into physical, mental, and spiritual paradise. You will find the 9 steps to quantum health transformation, my free, no strings attached comprehensive online lifestyle course, the Quantum Guide Show, interviews with awakened masters. Let them share their quantum work with you. Forbidden Transformation with Karen and Chris. I co-host along with Chris Matthew of Forbidden Knowledge News, and together we teach people how to make positive ET contact, improve your life, and find your experiencer community. And if you would like to support my work, you will also find my online shop.